Hi, hello there. You join me for volume 49 of Ask a Brit, the format in which I ask you find people to ask me any question you like, so long as you use the hashtag Ask a Brit, and so long as your question is in line with the theme that was laid out at the end of last week's episode, which in this case was British spelling. And stay tuned until the end of this episode to find out next week's theme. And so we're going to get underway. As I said, this week's theme is on British spelling. Before I do kick things off, though, I just want to remind people, if you've not had a chance yet, to take the Ornery survey. That's a survey I set up to try to test the regional pronunciation differences of the word ornery, a word that is very common to American English, I've come to find. Now, we've had a lot of responses, over 600 at this point, and I just want more because, I'm greedy. And I just want a bigger data set, which is always nice. So keep those coming, and I'll put that link in the comments section below, as well as the description, and you can share that with all your friends if you have any. I don't. Okay, first question. Let's get underway. Thank you. Bye. Not bye. It's not the end of the show yet. Okay, first question today comes from Annie Anton, and Annie is from Rhode Island. Annie asks, have you noticed any other US states that spell with Britishisms, like theatre as opposed to theatre, harbour instead of harbour, etc.? So I have. In fact, theatre is a good example because I have a bit of a background in theatre and obviously came from England, but I was aware of the spelling difference in theatre over here. And I was expecting whenever I joined a theatre here in the United States that I would encounter the ER spelling, but a lot of times that's not the case. In some sense, it might be to seem classical. Obviously, we gave the world Shakespeare, and there's a relationship there to that. It could be that the theatres in question are so old that they predate the standardization of American English spellings, but that is a word that I have commonly seen done. Going further back, I often see, and this is often, I think, to sort of be quite quirky or to, put out some sort of old style vibe. I seem to recall in Brown County, Indiana, there's this shop called Oldie Shop E, right? It's spelled like that. And they're trying to be funny. They're not. I don't know the origin of or the reasons behind them choosing that. But occasionally you do see that. Now, obviously, that's not how we spell shop. So occasionally these things do crop up, and you see them around and about. Now, I'd be interested to see if they stretch out west when I head out west. The occasional British spelling here and there. So I'll be on the lookout for that in San Francisco. I know they do have one or two British pubs. Maybe that's where I will find them. The next question comes from the Ghost of a Gamer, and the Ghost of a Gamer asks, do you still use British spellings, or have you changed to American spellings and have British spellings thrown the Yankees off? Yankees is his term, not mine. I promise. It's context dependent, I think. When I'm at work, for the most part, because I'm dealing with a US clientele, I do revert to American spellings. They're quite ingrained now. Although early on, working for the company that I currently work for, I seem to recall using the British spelling of centre, which, does not cause any confusion necessarily. I don't think that Americans look at that and simply don't know what it means. But they did have to have a chuckle at my usage of it. It didn't go out officially to any clients or anything like that, but one of these days I'll get it in there. And so in that context, yes, I absolutely use American spellings. But when I'm being casual, I tend to adopt or keep my British spellings. So when I might be interacting with you fine people in the comments, I often find myself doing it. All right, next up is Amy Tango, and Amy says, I have often been curious about the words that end in eyes versus ISE, eyes, which is the preferred British usage of that. And I can tell you that the ISE ending is inspired by Old French, and it is mostly the preferred way to end such a word. So organize, for example. Although I don't think we're as stringent about that rule as Americans are about employing the IZE ending. I seem to remember not really ever knowing which it was, to be honest. I'd go back and forth between them when I lived in the UK. So because of that, it wasn't really difficult for me to adopt the American propensity for using IZE. But of course, in this country, in fact, you also have examples of ISE ending words such as advise, surmise, surprise, that sort of thing, which, we also spell it that way back in the UK. But that's because those words come from Old French. And so they're inspired by Old French to have that ISE ending, which is partly why Americans differentiate in that regard. It's to do with the history of the word. If it comes from Greek, then it's likely to end in IZE. So there is a uniformity to what American English has done with that. And there's a little less of one, it seems like, with the way the British treat it. In fact, as I said, we're not very consistent with our usage necessarily. In fact, the Oxford English Dictionary suggests IZE. And says that ISE is more of an alternative to that. But for me, either is applicable, and I go back and forth depending on who I'm talking to. Again, I wouldn't include ISE in a lot of spellings to clientele. Otherwise, I might find somebody who's absolutely ardent about Greek and wanting to stick with that. Okay, the next question comes from Mike McElfresh. That is definitely YouTube name of the week. I bloody love that name, Mike. And Pips K has a similar question. Mike's question is, what is with all the extraneous U's? And Pips K asks, why do you think in Britain they spell colour with a U? So this actually goes back to French as well, or I should say, in fact, in this case, Anglo-French, in which we put U in words like colour and valour and words of that nature. And quite simply, the reason that Americans don't to this day is down to one man, really, and that would be Noah Webster, after whom the famous American dictionary is named. He wanted to simplify the spelling and also give America its own brand of English. And that's what he did. He chose to simplify a lot of these words that end in O-U-R and bring it down. But there are some exceptions to this day. For example, the word glamour tends to have a U in the United States. The Endeavour, the space shuttle, kept the U in it because it was named after the famous ship. Okay, so sometimes there are exceptions, but on the whole, Noah Webster did move to remove the U from those Anglo-French examples. Mark Storms, why is tyre spelled with a Y in the UK? So this is an interesting one. The word tyre has a fascinating history. The word tyre actually comes from the word attire, to mean clothing, I suppose. You clothe a wheel in a very strange way. And as you know, the word attire does not have a Y in it. So why and then should the word tyre? Well, originally, in fact, it did in fact have a Y, but then it started trending away from that and more toward using the I believe. And then probably in about the 20th century, Brit just started reincorporating the Y spelling, and it's become the norm ever since. Okay, and our final question today comes from Kelly Lydon, and Kelly asks, hi Lawrence, can you please address the British use of AE and OE in words where Americans use simply E in words such as orthopedic, fetus, estrogen, and pediatric? And also, do you notice some instances where British English has adopted the American spellings? For example, the British Medical Journal still publishes pediatrics with an A, while Oxford University Press publishes Journal of Pediatric Psychology without the A. So, yeah, obviously the AE and the OE spellings come from Latin. They are transliterations, actually, down from Greek symbols that we have used in a lot of words. And as you point out, a lot of them are medical terminology, or indeed scientific terminology, if you want to take it a step further. And there was a movement, of course, to sort of simplify the language, as we know, when we came over to the United States. And we've sort of just kept those old spellings. It's as simple as that, really. And to answer your next question, I can't off the top of my head think of another instance where Brits have adopted the sort of simpler American spelling. But in reverse, there are examples of America also using these Latin symbols, or I should say these Latin letter combinations. So, for example, see words like phoenix, as in both the bird and the city in Arizona. Although I believe there is a phoenix in I think it's Virginia that is spelt without the O, just to be clever. The name Phoebe, for example, and aesthetic is quite often spelled AE over here as well. And archaeology tends to go back and forth between the British and the American spelling, as it were. Yes, it's a very interesting difference for sure. And, I think since moving here, I have more or less started to adopt the American usage just for the simplicity's sake. So to go back to a Ghost of a Gamer's question, that's one instance where I think uniformity uniformly, I've moved away from it. In fact, sometimes it's quite hard to remember how to spell things like encyclopedia in the British way until you really stop and think about it. It is just much easier, especially in the age of online encyclopedias that are often, influenced by American spellings, like Wikipedia, for example, to just use the American spelling. So there's that. Okay, that's it for this volume of Ask a Brit. Thank you for joining me. And don't forget to join me next week because it's a very special episode. We turn 50. Not 50 years. That would be mental. 50 volumes. And to commemorate the occasion, we are going to have this as the topic. The 50 United States. So get your questions coming in about any of the 50 states. Any question you like. Could be your home state. Could be your neighboring state. Could be my state. Could be any state you like. Just not a mental state, because that's not what we're talking about. Physical United States. And don't forget to use the hashtag AskABrit. Until next time, cheerio. Bye. See ya. Thank you for watching this episode of Ask a Brit. Don't forget to hit my stupid little face to subscribe, and please share this video with the world. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you'd like to support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond.